Eating all the food from Home Alone. It was a 7-course meal. Of course, you start off with a pizza for $122.50. And then since the family ate all the cheese, we had veggie pizza and you get your own little pie. Like, it's so cute. And then there's that one scene where he eats the giant sundae and they brought us a savory version since it wasn't dessert time yet. So it had like little balls of mozzarella and balsamic drizzle. And then it was mascarpone instead of ice cream with a beet instead of a cherry. It was very unique. And then they gave us drinks in little salt trash cans like the old man has. And of course, you gotta fit in the fancy shrimp cocktails that they all eat in Paris. And cocktail sauce always reminds me a little bit of ketchup. It's like so tangy, you know? But the shrimp was super tender. And then we got firecracker chicken for the main course, which was just a seared chicken thigh with a sparkler. So cute. The chicken was actually so moist too and like a little crispy. And the mashed sweet potatoes had this like thick chicken gravy. It was so comforting. And of course, the iconic Kraft mac and cheese that he doesn't even get to eat, but we did. Definitely an elevated version. It was topped with Parmesan and toasted breadcrumbs, but honestly, they did get that classic Kraft taste in there. Like, it was so nostalgic. And then when the bad guy steps on those Christmas ornaments with bare feet, they give us cosmos and little ornaments too. And finally, the cookies and carrots that he leaves out for Santa. They had crunchy M&Ms and this nice warm cinnamon flavor, and the carrot was a carrot. And that's all for today. Eating all the food from Ratatouille? So it's a movie food experience where you eat the food from the movie while you watch it. There was like 6 different courses and drinks, and the first course was called Remy's Trash Can, and you eat this trash can salad while he's still at the colony eating trash. And then when he mixes the strawberry with the cheese, you eat a little charcuterie board, and it's just so cute to like pretend that you're Remy and you're eating your little cheese. And then when he roasts that cheese mushroom skewer on the chimney and gets struck by lightning, they serve a stuffed mushroom on a sparkler. Adorable. And it was so cheesy and like smoky and lightning-y. And then there's that scene where Remy cooks soup for the first time in the restaurant, and we all got these cute little pots and ingredients to make our own soup. And you guys, I'm not even lying, this is some of the best soup I've ever had. It was so cheesy and like with the crunchy breadcrumbs and the freshness from the basil. It was perfectly salty too. And then there's that recipe where Remy adds the special sauce like right before it goes out the door, and it was this super tender, really moist chicken thigh and this like smooth potato puree and this creamy butter sauce on top that added so much richness that went really well with the crunchy green beans. They also serve so many pretty bevs throughout the movie, and of course there's that iconic ratatouille that brings Ego back to his childhood. And I can't say I've ever had ratatouille. I'm not even a big squash fan, but it was pretty fire. Like, the sauce was really robust and flavorful, and it was so aromatic too. And finally, we got these cute little vanilla creme brulees for dessert, super crunchy and sugary and like really rich and creamy, and the berries were so juicy. And that's all for today. Everything I ate for $10 in China. First, we went to this famous Sichuan noodle shop, and this place is a well-oiled machine. One guy is on sauce duty and one lady is on noodle duty, and each bowl is only $2. And this was the best bowl of noodles I've ever had in my life. The sauce was mind-blowingly flavorful. It's got that addictive, nutty peanut flavor and like the spicy, numbing Sichuan flavor and the acidity from the pickled veggies. My mouth is watering while I edit this. And the sauce in the beef noodles was even more buttery, and it had that warm, comforting flavor from the sesame oil, and the braised beef melted in my mouth. Like, it was so tender, so juicy, and the noodles were so slurpy, and it's just incredible. Then we got in line for these famous crispy beef pancakes. So they stretch out the dough super thin, then they add meat and like cabbage and spices, and then they twist it all up like a tornado and pan fry it till it gets so crispy crunchy, so flaky, and so buttery too. And again, the spices add so much flavor. And then we went to another famous spot for what's basically a Chinese donut. They deep fry these rice balls till they puff up and get super fluffy, and then they coat them in this brown sugar sauce that hardens so the outside has like a sugary crunch. They kind of have a chewy mochi texture too, and the whole stick was only 69 cents. And I keep seeing these cold, spicy jelly noodles that literally like explode in your mouth when you bite into them. It's such a fun, floppy, squishy texture, and the spicy sauce was fire. And I had a few dollars left, so I got some stinky tofu, which smells kind of like feet, but it doesn't taste bad. It just kind of tastes salty, and the spongy texture is so much fun. And finally, I got some 2 yuan ice cream, which is only 28 cents. It's so creamy, and it's not too sweet at all. And that's all for today. Only eating at Black-owned restaurants for a full day. First, I went to this dumpling shop where they have the most unique flavors, like a brownie dumpling, which is kind of incredible. It's filled with this like thick, warm, gooey brownie and topped with ice cream and chocolate sauce and more brownie. It's so rich. And these fried ones were bacon cheeseburger flavored, and the bacon flavor was strong. It was like so meaty, really crispy. And the spicy pork pot stickers were served in soup, but they were actually hot. Like, I love it when it's actually spicy, you know, and so juicy too. And these ones are filled with mac and cheese. Like, Are you joking? And the cheddar flavor was intense, so melty and so good with the spicy buffalo sauce. And then the pepperoni pizza one was basically a pizza roll, like all the way down to the hot lava filling that burns your tongue. And then we went to a paint and pour class where you sip while you paint a picture, but the food was actually incredible. The mac and cheese was so intensely cheesy and like gooey and rich, and it just melted in your mouth. Kind of addicting, actually. And the buffalo wings were crispy, and the buffalo sauce was like tangy and bright. And just look at the sliders. They were smothered in this like really garlicky, peppery, creamy aioli, and they were actually really juicy, and the bun was so buttery. Oh yeah, and we painted little Christmas gnomes. It's seriously like the best date night idea. We had so much fun, and that's all for today. Only eating my all-time favorite foods for a full day. Today is my birthday, so of course I had to get my favorite breakfast of all time. So the manager at my favorite bagel shop introduced me to this glorious creation. It's a jalapeno everything bagel with extra bacon, sriracha, cream cheese, and a tomato. It's spicy and juicy and so creamy. And then you already know I had to get some dumplings from Super Taste. The Sichuan steamed ones fully melt in your mouth, and the pork is so flavorful and savory. And the fried ones are just so simple and delicious. Like no frills, just juicy pork, crispy wrapping, and spicy crunchy chili oil. It's incredible. And for dinner, I knew I wanted pizza. I decided to go for Village Square, and of course you have to add the hot honey, and the pepperoni one is like piled high with crispy, greasy pepperonis, and the hot honey adds that sweetness and spice. It's so much meat and it's so good. And then their vodka square is pretty fire too, because it's so buttery and rich, and the crust is like a little fluffy with that perfect crunch. Also, their pesto is like so bright and cheesy, and the marinara has a little sweetness, and the ranch is so tangy. And yeah, that's all for today. Everything I ate for $70 at the Bryant Park Winter Village. This place has been all over my For You page, and specifically this truffle cheesesteak sandwich, which is smothered in like the softest, creamiest blend of mozzarella, provolone, and bechamel cheese. It's made with truffle oil, so the steak is even richer and more tender and flavorful, and the toasted bread is so soft, and it was just so comforting and so cheesy. And I kept hearing about these crispy chick sticks, but they're each $13. I mean, the stick was pretty huge, and oh my goodness, I was not expecting the chicken to be so freaking crispy and moist. And the waffle had this amazing crunch, but it was still really fluffy and so buttery. Really good with the maple syrup, but even better with the spicy chipotle sauce, which was really creamy. Like, it was all around delicious. And then I got these $15 donuts. You pick whatever toppings you want, and again, it was so expensive, but so freaking good. Like, the milk chocolate sauce was thick and so silky smooth and so rich. And the donuts were perfectly soft and pillowy with like a little crisp on the outside. Like, maybe I was just hungry, but this food was blowing me away. And this dumpling spot had jerk chicken dumplings. They were $13, but the filling was so spicy. It had this great smoky kick, and it could have used some dipping sauce for sure, but like the wrapping was nice and tender. And finally, I got this famous Max Brenner hot chocolate for $9, and it was intense, like drinking straight up melted chocolate, almost too much for me, and like I have the worst sweet tooth. But yeah, that's all for today. Everything I ate at a sit-down Pizza Hut in China. Y'all, Pizza Hut in China is fancy. Their menu was huge, like everything from beef Wellington to tiramisu lava cake, and I had to start with some spaghetti and meatballs. And one thing I've got to warn you about, if you ever come to China, the marinara here is sweet, like sweet, not savory. But the meatballs were actually kind of fire. They were bouncy and juicy and actually savory, and the noodles just remind me of Jollibee spaghetti. Like, if you're expecting it to be sweet, it's pretty good. I also got some coconut shrimp that came with this yogurt sauce that was, again, kind of sweet. Like, I don't know about the sauce, but the shrimp was so crispy, crunchy, and really tender and really well seasoned. And then I got bolognese fries, and the bolognese sauce was somehow even more sugary than the spaghetti. I don't know, but it did not go well with the salty fries. And then I wanted to try the potato pizza, but it ended up being a breakfast pizza. Like, it had scrambled eggs and bacon and potatoes and this sweet icing on top. Could have been a little cheesier, but the sausage stuffed crust was delicious. Like, the crust actually had a nice crispy crunch. And finally, we had to get the lava cake tiramisu. First of all, it was beautiful and actually pretty smooth and creamy, and it had a nice espresso flavor. And that's all for today. Everything I ate at a night market in China. This is the craziest night market I've ever been to. They have everything from snails to brains to creatures I've never even seen before. And I started out at a DIY noodle cart. You pick out all your own ingredients, and I got some beef balls and jelly noodles, and then she makes this sauce from scratch and boils all your ingredients for you. And look at how beautiful. The rice noodles here have the best like slurpy, soft texture, and the broth has that spicy chili kick with like a little tangy sourness too. So aromatic. Also, jelly noodles are so fun and like bouncy, and the the sausage was a little sweet, and the lotus root was so crunchy. And then next up, I found this guy with heaping piles of squid skewers, and he was grilling them in this spicy sauce that made like the air taste spicy, you know? Not fishy at all, just like a little bouncy with that smoky heat that kind of sits in the back of your throat, like the perfect street food snack. And then we walked by this guy with the most beautiful, vibrant crepe cakes, and the cream in China is so light and fluffy and not too sweet. It's like biting into a cloud that just like melts in your mouth, and the strawberry was actually nice and sugary. And these steamed scallops with glass noodles are one of my favorite foods from all the way back when I was first quarantined in Shanghai like 2 years ago. The vermicelli noodles are smothered in garlic and chilies, and they're like swimming in this really buttery sauce. It's so flavorful. And I keep seeing these deep fried potatoes everywhere, so I had to try some. They mix them up with so many different herbs and spices, and they've got like a little crisp on the outside, but inside they're really soft and also piping hot. Like I definitely burnt my mouth a bit, but it was worth it. And that's all for today. Eating at the most decked out Christmas restaurants for a full day in New York City. First up, I had to go to the spot that's decorated all year. Like they go wild for Halloween too, and every single inch is covered in Christmas. Also, they have the best shepherd's pie I've ever had in my life. It is smothered in cheese and served with this crispy toast. It's so savory and rich, and the meat is like super juicy and so comforting. And this truffle gnocchi has brown butter cream sauce, so rich, and they added fried sage that gives it this aromatic herbiness. And they have giant life-size Santas too, like I'm obsessed. And then next up, we went to this spot that had the largest outdoor heated beer garden in the Lower East Side, and look, Santa followed me. Creepy. And look at these gorgeous hot chocolates overflowing with toasted marshmallows, and the actual hot chocolate is dark and white Ghirardelli, so it's like sugary but also really rich. And it's a German restaurant, so they have giant pretzels, and this is some of the best mustard I've ever had. Like it's got this sweetness that really helps with the sharpness, and it's so like smooth. And then this buttermilk chicken schnitzel sandwich was so crispy crunchy and had this delicious spicy coleslaw and like tangy pickles, and I'm such a sucker for a pretzel bun. But my favorite thing was actually the smoked salmon potato pancakes. They had this great crunch on the outside, but so soft and warm inside, and the salmon melted in my mouth. And the sauce was so creamy. And finally, we went to a 3-story Christmas bar where they gave us Christmas light necklaces and Santa hats, and the drinks were all holiday themed. And then just look at this winter wonderland entrance to the downstairs. Like they went all out. It was kind of overwhelming. The whole downstairs was a club, and then upstairs you can meet Santa, and there was like Christmas tree forests, and yeah, that's all for today. Only eating at convenience stores for a full day in China. For breakfast, I had to get a big, fluffy, pork-filled baozi, and I had some crunchy cabbage, and the pork was pretty juicy, and of course, the bun was so pillowy. I also had to get some soup skewers because there's nothing better on a cold day. I think this was a fish cake wrapped in this like soft, yummy seaweed, and it was so juicy. And the beef balls were bouncy and actually had a little spicy kick too, which I wasn't expecting. And this jiggly tofu looked so fun. Also, it soaks up all the salty soup like a sponge. And then I saw a burger in a box, like not in the freezer section, so I was curious. It came with a bun and a patty and some mayo, and I was not expecting it to taste exactly like a burger with all the components. Like the patty tasted like pickles and mustard and ketchup and cheese. It was really odd. I also saw they have lava cakes. It was more like a cupcake with like a soft chocolatey pudding at the center, and it was actually so moist. And then later I went to a 2-story Family Mart, and I found this lemon-shaped ice cream, so cute, and it was pretty tart and tangy, but also like really creamy and kind of soft, like not icy like a sorbet. And since we were in Chengdu, everything is panda themed. He was so adorable. I didn't want to eat him, but I did. And he was cheesecake, pretty smooth and filled with mangoes. Yum. And finally, I found banana bread, as in bread shaped like a banana. It smelled just like banana, and wouldn't you know it, it was filled with banana filling. It was really fluffy too and sweet like Hawaiian bread. And that's all for today. Everything I ate at a dumpling steakhouse? Yeah, so it's technically a chop house that also serves dumplings, like of all kinds. I got the cheeseburger dumplings that came with ketchup, which I wasn't sure about, but I mean, it totally worked. Like the burger filling was so juicy too. And look at these massive French onion soup dumplings. They were bursting with that like kind of sweet, savory, caramelized onion soup. And it was also filled with melty cheese and that kind of soggy bread that's also really yummy. And the chicken satay looked a little bright, but oh my goodness, the peanut sauce was so nutty and flavorful, and the chicken was so tender it literally melted in my mouth. But these crispy pan-fried pastrami dumplings were by far my favorite. They were so spicy, and they came with this creamy wasabi sauce that will clear your sinuses. Really intense. And then the lamb gyro dumplings came with tzatziki sauce, which was like super fresh and bright and creamy, and I've never had a tomahawk steak in my life, but just look at how gorgeous, like so tender and buttery and juicy, and yeah, I mean, it just tastes expensive. Honestly though, the chicken was my favorite. It had this amazing sweet sticky sauce and crunchy caramelized walnuts. And honestly, this is probably the best lobster I've ever had in my life. Like, it was so tender and so flavorful. Chris doesn't even like lobster and he was going back for seconds. And the fried rice came in this huge bucket, so it stayed piping hot the whole time, which was awesome. And then finally we got these crispy apple pie wontons filled with this gooey, sugary apple pie filling. Yum! And that's all for today. Everything I ate in an ancient city in China. This town was built over 3,000 years ago and it's still so full of culture and local foods like this baba, which is this fluffy, slightly chewy bread. It was stuffed with sesame paste, so it had that like peanut buttery nuttiness, and it also had this sweet bean paste that almost made it taste like a peanut butter and jelly. Then we explored the city for a bit and wandered into this super traditional restaurant where they had all these local dishes like this sour, spicy rice noodle soup. These noodles are so popular in Yunnan. They have this like slurpy, smooth texture, and the broth is so flavorful and spicy with that little sour bite at the end. And it also had tofu and beef. And this clay pot chicken is also super famous because the chicken is steamed for 3 to 4 hours, so it gets so tender and juicy. It just falls right off the bone, and it's such a warm, comforting dish. And after some more exploring, I was craving something sweet, and we found this lady selling all of these beautiful shaved ice desserts. So I just pointed to the one that looked the most chocolatey, and she made me this big, beautiful bowl with like Oreos and chocolate chunks and whipped cream and Pocky, and the ice is so light and refreshing, so it's not too sweet. And then I fell for that gold coin pancake tourist trap because it looks so yummy and cheesy. And look, the outside was nice and crispy and golden brown, and inside it was like super buttery and soft, but where was the cheese? It tasted cheesy, but there was no cheese pull at all, so it was kind of tragic. But that's all for today. Letting famous YouTubers decide what I eat for a full day. First, I asked Keith from the Try Guys, and he said to go to this specific noodle shop that are famous for these beef noodles, and of course, I had to get it extra spicy. And just look at how juicy that beef is, and the broth is like kind of smoky and has a nice like peppery heat, but the noodles themselves were like the perfect texture, not too soft and not too firm. And their Taiwanese popcorn chicken was so crispy, and it had this really strong cinnamon flavor that almost made the breading taste like a churro. I don't know, but then I asked Uncle Roger, who said to get Malaysian food, specifically nasi lemak from the Lower East Side. It had these tiny little fried anchovies that were so crunchy and really packed a flavor punch, and then the curry chicken was so tender, and it had like coconut rice and eggs and cucumber and this sweet spicy sambal. It was so yummy. Also, I realized you're supposed to eat it with a spoon, not chopsticks, so that's my bad. And then I had to get some char kway teow because it's my favorite. The rice noodles are the perfect chewy texture, and the egg just soaks up the flavor. It's like salty, savory with a little sweetness and some smokiness too. And it had jumbo shrimp and juicy sausage, like so many textures and flavors. And finally, I asked Josh from the Mythical Kitchen, and he said I had to go to this Thai diner for their famous egg sandwich. This Lao sausage, or Sai Ua sausage, has this amazing aromatic herviness, and like the fluffy, super moist, buttery eggs melt in your mouth. The roti was so soft and stretchy, and it came with this spicy chili jam that was hot, like it had me tearing up. And that's all for today. Only eating street food for a full day in Turkey. First up, I found this guy selling Turkish pizza. It's called lahmacun, and it's made with minced meat and this really thin, crispy crust. He told me to put the salad inside and then roll it up, and oh my gosh, it was so flavorful, so spicy and meaty and like fresh. And the crust is so light, it's not too filling at all. Like, I could eat the whole thing. Then I explored some more, and I found this lokma stand. So these are these shiny little fried donuts covered in sugary syrup that like hardens a little bit, so they have the perfect crunch. They were warm and sweet, and they had that amazing deep fried flavor, but they weren't oily at all, like so fluffy. I also found a kumpir stand. So they have all these topping options, and you pick what you want, and they stuff it all into a baked potato. And I asked the lady to make it how she likes, so she gave me sausage, couscous, this thick yogurt, this really crunchy red cabbage, and some sweet corn. And oh my gosh, the potato is so rich and fluffy and soft and cheesy, like so many flavors. And then on my way back, I found all of these gorgeous pastries. This one is called burek, and it's filled with beef, and it's a little spicy, and oh my gosh, the pastry is so freaking flaky and tender, and it goes so well with that savory, like juicy meat. I also saw this pastry that was just labeled boom, so of course I had to try it. And you guys, it's the same one I tried in the Starbucks in Istanbul. It's full of Nutella, and oh my gosh, it was warm, like so thick and rich and chocolatey. I am obsessed with these. And that's all for today. Eating whatever I want for a full day. On the days when I'm not required to film something, I have to go to my favorite bakery because their menu changes every single week, but my favorite are their Ferrero Rocher cruffins that are filled with that addictive hazelnutty Nutella filling, and then their croissants are works of art. This one was filled with this really smooth, sugary jam and this nutty cream that kind of made it taste like a super buttery PB&J. Also, their donuts are the fluffiest things ever. This Mexican hot chocolate one had the lightest, most pillowy cream filling. I think the eclairs are my second favorite though. The ube one literally melts in your mouth mouth. And they also made me a holiday pie. Are you kidding? Absolutely gorgeous with this crispy, buttery chocolate crust and this thick, rich hazelnut mousse. And then it was topped with meringue and butterscotch and crunchy chocolate shards. And it was just amazing. And at night, we went on a holiday cocoa cruise around Manhattan. There was like a jazz band playing Christmas music, and you just sail around and look at all the pretty lights. And they gave us a cute little charcuterie board with yummy smoked Gouda and blackberry jam. And then we went to see the Statue of Liberty, and look at how calm the water is. It was so gorgeous. They do these cruises all year round too. I would 100% recommend it for a cute date night. And then we went to this winter wonderland themed rooftop where they were passing out churros and hot chocolate and these adorable little hot chocolate shots that also had peanut butter in them. So sweet. And yeah, that's all for today.